rounded off with the Pan Am budget, which seems to be just increasing daily. All right, let's start off things with the bus lanes. It's certainly become a wedge issue in the mayoral race. Everybody's talking about it. We've seen articles in the paper recently which have said that the merchants are not happy with what's going on down there. And of course, this supposedly a prerequisite for what we're going to see with LRT. So Ron, I'll throw it to you. Should we be taking the city down a different path here, or should we be continuing the way we're going?
Well, Scott, this is an experiment that the city has put on, and they've extended it a little longer, but I don't see this going ahead. If you got businesses not being able to conduct their business, and this is an impediment to that, then it's not going to be working. We've heard of all the benefits and spin-offs that the LRT is supposed to bring, and can you imagine the construction of the LRT during that whole period and how long that's going to take? The infrastructure that has to be done underneath the tracks. It's not just laying the tracks up above, but when you get businesses that cannot operate or people find it inconvenient to shop there, then they're not going to go there. I know that there's parking on the...
Isn't it the Liberal government itself in the province of Ontario actually suggesting to certain municipalities, ours being one, and Kitchener-Waterloo, that here's some money, look at the LRT. I mean, it's the Liberal government.
If it works.
Well, they're talking about it, but they're not actually committing to it. They keep telling us that they're going to give us money for some sort of transit initiative, but they will never clearly state that yes, you are getting the LRT if you're willing to boot in X number of dollars, for one part of it, or you're actually getting bus rapid transit. We don't really know what the province is offering us. It's just difficult, though, Jessica. Jessica, give me one second. I just don't understand why our own mayoral race has been completely hijacked by this. This one issue, when it's not even an issue that we might have a chance to deal with within the next 4 years.
That we have to start planning.
I see that from a different point of view. I think with the 21st century sophisticated cities, we're seeing that we need to move people and the economic impact of moving people to the right places within a city.
But we can't even make our buses run properly. How are we expecting
and that is
people
another
to go
issue that we have to
LRT?
deal with as a municipality around transit in general.
Absolutely, but I'm not willing to put all that money into it.
Has to want to move forward on this issue.
And where does that leave us? Because really, at the end of the day, a few months ago, we were talking about the council had agreed on this plan. Now we just have to see if we're going to get the funding that we need to complete the project. Now we're talking about something completely different. We're talking about as if it may not even be viable. It may not even work in the downtown core. Me personally, I think that LRT that isn't connected to a Go Hub isn't modern transit.
It has to be convenient.
Hamilton is not just downtown Hamilton.
I agree.
No, Jessica, it's not. Then why is this entire LRT focused on the downtown?
People who live on the mountain, a better transit system is something that this municipality needs to get its brain around. And the LRT is an option. A BRT, as the bus rapid transit, is another option. There are lots of options, and if the government is willing to give us $800 million
to take that money,
then we need to
why take that money when we don't understand how much of that, how much more money we need to put in?
And you could travel all over this huge city, underground or above on LRT, which they have. But it's convenient. I want to get to the Coliseum. It's convenient.
And why can't that translate into Hamilton?
Well, I think the paradigm's changed here, though. I think a lot has shifted. I think when this plan first started, it was about economic development in the city. Then, after we've seen what's happened in the GTHA with transportation and gridlock, now all of a sudden it's become a transportation issue. And as I mentioned earlier, LRT that isn't hooked up to a major Go Hub doesn't move people the most efficient way. And when you're spending this kind of money at the end, you got to cover those bases.
The city is suggesting that people other than those riding the bus now will ride the LRT because it's somewhat neater. I don't really get that, but I don't think that's the case. And we have to make sure that we're moving people properly now, and that's not the case. So deal with what we have now.
That being said, this is something you have to plan for well in advance, and that's why we're talking about it during this
It
election.
has to be convenient,
Yep.
and you know what?
And look what it's done. Yeah, like you
And
said,
it's
Ron,
not
look
gonna
what
be
it's done
built
to
my
the
lifetime
businesses
anyway.
just in that tiny section that we've had this bus lane for a year. That
So if
cost
the LRT
a crazy
goes
amount
down-
of money to put on, and it's going
We
to
don't
cost a
have
crazy
to
amount of money to
throw
take out.
the baby with the bathwater. If something is not working in that particular scenario, then let's deal with what are those problems and how do we fix that. And
I
let's
recognize
look at
that,
the larger
Jessica,
picture.
but you could see that this wasn't going to work from before they did it. Like if a regular citizen can see it, then how can't the planning committee see it?
It was
I don't
interesting,
get it.
too, the transportation minister down at Union Station this past week boasting about the great project they're doing down there with connecting subways, transit buses, subways, and via and GO trains. So in the end, he's selling this seamless sort of transportation model, and he's the one that's going to give us the money. So I think we should learn from that, should we not?
Absolutely.
About what, in fact, they're willing to pay for and the
What we
connectivity
have
that needs to
put
have.
in, Scott,
Absolutely.
that's really what we have to focus on.
And I heard of the spin-offs and the benefits of having the LRT line, that businesses will come to that line.
Ron,
right
it
now you
depends-
have
it depends
businesses
on
in
what-
the East End.
on what,
You know what? Right now you have
thing
business
you
in
read,
the
'cause
East
they're all
End.
different.
Well, they're all different, but you have business in the East End. If you come out of Eastgate Square, you cannot cross the tracks to go right. You have to go left to go right. You have to drive out of your way 2 or 3 blocks to turn around to go in the opposite direction. So business, that's inconvenient for people. And if this
you
is,
know what it is, Ron?
if the LRT or the BRT
we're
are going to
creatures
move
of
forward,
comfort and habit.
But it has
and
to be
we're not going to
convenient.
go out of our way to
Isn't
do
it
so.
interesting how we're talking about LRT and the original discussion was about the bus lane? So there, it's funny how it's
It's the same thing, though.
Well,
It's the
that's
same
meant to
thing.
be- it's
Yeah.
meant
Because
to
you
be
took
an
out a
echo
lane
Yeah,
of,
yeah, yeah.
so now you got 2 lanes of traffic. I avoid King Street right now. For me to get here, I work at downtown in Victoria and in King Street, and I avoid going there. It would take me at least 10 to 20 minutes longer to get to the studio,
Scott,
and I
both
drive
my
around
parents
it.
And I've got a home in that area, and I end up zooming through Jackson Street, even through the City Hall parking lot, just to just to maneuver
So
through,
where does
so I
this?
don't have to deal with
Where
it.
does this leave the city then? Because this was signed, sealed, and delivered. We're looking for the money now.
Not
all of a
anymore.
sudden,
Not anymore.
Does the city really want it? If you take a poll, if you take a referendum, if you put this on a ballot for this upcoming
will not
election,
happen.
It's not going to happen. But do the people up in Ward 6, 7, 8, 9, do they really want the LRT? I don't know.
But do they want a better transit system?
They want it, yes.
Absolutely.
Yes, we
and
do.
is
Themselves in
LRT
their
a possible
wards.
option for a better transit system?
Yes, we do.
Absolutely.
Too big, too expensive, too much track to get us all through the city.
has this been ill planned?
Yes.
I
Ron?
would say so. I would say so.
I think
Absolutely.
we're beginning to plan.
Yes.
Wait
I
a sec.
think
We're
how
not.
many
We're not at the
years?
stage that we're beginning to plan.
No,
We're at the
but-
stage where we're asking the government for money.
well,
planning should be
It's
done.
also the government willing to give us money. So
We
we
are
need
the
to see
taxpayer.
what's the best effective way of using that money to better transit in Hamilton. And LRT is an option. BRT
Is another option.
is another option. We talked about the city that you went to visit
Yes.
this year, which many different kind of options. We need to consider that. It's the 21st century. This is Hamilton. We need to be a sophisticated city, and we need to make it easy for people to move. I agree.
Absolutely.
If you own a home and you're used to being in a car and moving around, great.
To
but
me-
that's not the whole community.
To
they
me-
live in rental units. They don't have cars. They use buses.
And
they
are
use
they all
a
going to be
bicycle.
on this LRT line?
Well,
not necessarily.
Those of
absolutely
my
not.
generation, give us another 15, 20 years, we'll probably have our car licenses ripped away from us. We're going to need to get
No.
around this city because we want to go out. We want to be involved
And
in what's
wrong
going
with the
on.
bus now?
This reminds
From
me.
Dundas, do we go there? Do
But
we
we're
want
not
to
even
go there?
suggesting putting an LRT all the way to Dundas, and that's the thing. It's just such a small
No, but it's
track.
part of a larger, planned out, better
There is
transit
not
system
enough
for
money.
You said a
There's
key word
not
there,
enough
Jessica,
money.
planned. And to me, this reminds me of the stadium issue. Great idea, great windfall, but we failed
Wrong
to get
place.
maximum
Lipstick on a
return
pig.
Wrong
for our
place.
dollar. And what I'm worried about, LRT, great idea, unsure of the route. Are we going to end up the same place we did with the stadium with a nice new toy, but it just really wasn't quite right?
Does that
We just
I don't
didn't
want it
get
to
our
be a white elephant.
We didn't get our maximum impact. We didn't get the maximum value for
It has to go
Does that
east,
bring
west,
us
and
to
north, south.
leadership at the municipal council? Does that bring us to the mayoralty race itself?
Absolutely.
And the council races that are going on in all the different wards? I mean, we need a council total, whoever the individuals are, who are 100% planning for the future of the community and not just whatever their personal agenda is.
All right, we have to move on. Obviously, this is going to be something we're going to be talking about for a long time.
For the next 20 years.
It seems whenever there's an election coming or one has just finished, we always talk about how